Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your next mini lesson on rationalism in American literature for Jenison International Academy. This is going to be a really short mini lesson, but there is a second part that you do need to view on persuasive rhetoric. It's going to be a schmoop video that's included in the assignment folder with this as well. So make sure as you take your Cornell notes that you watch both videos and take notes on both, please. Other than that, take your Cornell notes. If you have questions, reach out to your instructor, and let's get on our way. No taxation without representation. Give me liberty or give me death. We hold these truths to be self-evident. We, the people. Many famous phrases have come from the rhetoric of the American Revolution, along with many of our favorite national anecdotes. The Boston Tea Party, the shot heard round the world, and George Washington at Valley Forge. Behind the rhetoric and the mythologization of the Revolution, however, lies major philosophical ideas that not only transformed the British colonies into a nation, but they laid the groundwork for democratic institutions throughout the world. On the surface, the conflict between England and her American colonies was about money. Specifically, what the colonists considered unlawful taxation without that representation. On a deeper level, what gave the rebellious colonists the mental preparedness and moral strength needed for such a dangerous undertaking as a revolution came essentially from two sources: John Locke, an English philosopher, and the Bible. Now, central to Locke's theory was the notion of natural rights. In addition to life and liberty, the right to own property was considered a natural right. If any government abridged that right to property by levying taxes without the consent of the property owners, for example, then the people could organize a new government. You can see the spirit of Locke reflected in Jefferson's eloquent opening of the Declaration of Independence. Locke's idea of property rights were echoed in the wording of the U.S. Constitution, and the revolutionary writers in this part of American history, particularly Patrick Adams, Phyllis Wheatley, Abigail Adams, and Michel Guillemot, Jean de Crevecoeur, all appealed to natural rights in their arguments for freedom. You see, the American Revolution was not solely the enterprise of learned men and women of the day, however. Ordinary people were caught up in the struggle too, and they used the Bible to help them make hard decisions about their country and their lives. From the time of the early Pilgrims, successive generations of Protestant ministers had proclaimed from their pulpits that no man need obey a government that violated the will of God as defined in the Bible. During the Revolution, many preachers recounted Bible stories of unjust rulers who burdened the people with high taxes and unjust laws. While much of the political writing during this time contained lofty philosophical ideas, it also vibrated with the fiery passion of a Puritan minister. You see, in Patrick Henry's famous "Give me liberty or give me death" speech, you hear more references to God in the Bible than to Locke's ideas of natural rights. The philosophical and religious ideas that spurred the American Revolution also raised other important issues, the most important being slavery. The philosophy of democracy is as much an attack on the institution of slavery as it is on the political tyranny. However, the entire plantation economy of the South was dependent on slaves, who were considered the property of the plantation owners. As powerful Southern landowners exerted their influence in the new government, reform that might have prohibited slavery was halted. Another issue for the Founding Fathers was what to do about Native Americans. In the early years of the nation, the policy of the U.S. government was to assimilate Native Americans into Anglo culture and bring them in. To this end, the government officials worked with existing missions set up by the principal churches of the time to teach Native Americans Christian theology, reading, writing, as well as to train them in agriculture. Although some Native Americans resisted such efforts, most notably Seneca Chief Red Jacket, the U.S. policy worked for a while. However, in 1830, U.S. policy towards Native Americans changed. The Indian Removal Act authorized the relocation of tribes from the southeastern states to land west of the Mississippi River in order to free up the well-cultivated Indian farmland for white settlers. Even though the ideas of equality and natural rights promised by the American Revolution did not fully materialize after the war, the noble words had been written, and they remained to haunt the country. The conflict also remained for subsequent generations of Americans to resolve, first during the Civil War and later in the Civil Rights Movement of the 20th century. When you read the words of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X as they contemplate that meaning of equal rights in their own time, you'll be able to recognize the American traditions of political thought that dates back to the beginnings of our country. Because it's such a short unit, we're only going to read 2 pieces this week. You're only going to be here for a week. First, we're going to read Abigail Adams and her letters to John Adams. She's a revolutionary woman who speaks her mind in an unfamiliar voice from what we've been reading lately. Additionally, Michel Guillaume Jean J. Crevecoeur wrote What is an American? And has many ideas on the early ideas about the melting pot that is the soon-to-be United States of America. And you will be able to examine what is an American today compared to what an American was in his mind back then as well. If you have questions, reach out to your instructors for assistance. Make sure you take your Cornell notes, and do be sure to check out that second video on persuasive rhetoric before you turn in your Cornell notes. Have a good week, folks.